Hello, what's going on, everybody? This is the Charlie Hempseed Podcast. I am your host, Charlie, and welcome back to another exciting Canna News episode. Today we got quite a few articles, some local, some all across the nation. Let's hop right into it. So, this one is a new one being broadcasted on the headlines today, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, and this is on CNN.com. The overuse of marijuana linked to surgery complications and death, study says. This is a clinical overuse of marijuana is linked to a variety of complications after major elective surgery, including blood clots, stroke, breathing difficulties, kidney issues, and even death, a new study found. Our findings complement previous studies that have identified significant associations between cannabis use disorders and preoperative complications, the study's author wrote in the report. The research team is from the Department of Anesthesiology, Critical Care and Pain Medicine at the McGovern Medical School, part of the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. Why would this be? Smoking marijuana impacts blood flow to the brain, body, decreases respiration and body temperature, contributes to airway blockages, raises blood pressure, increases heart rate, impacts heart rhythm, and much more. So, the only thing that I personally could agree with is the heart rhythm and the heart problems. I think that from a personal cannabis user's standpoint, I can tell you that if you heavy smoke certain varieties, it can give you an increase in heart rate and even an irregular heart rate. That's not uncommon. So, is that possibly true? Sure. But the University of Harvard did do a 40-year lung study on cannabis use in heavy cannabis smokers, and they found that there was no impact to the airways, there was no impact to COPD or cancer rates. So it's a pretty direct controversy to the University of Harvard. Also, the University of Johns Hopkins has done a complete 40-year study on the use of marijuana, and all of a sudden, at the height of cannabis use all across the nation, and the fact that many young people are choosing to use cannabis over alcohol, mainstream news they're going to try to downplay marijuana use, of course. And I just had surgery recently. Twice last year I had surgery, and I had been heavy using cannabis. I did not have any blood clots. I did not have any air problems, anything like that, or even any problems recovering. If anything, I would say that my cannabis use helped my recovery. And I know there's a lot of doctors out there who say they will group cannabis use and cannabis smoking into the same kind of category as cigarette smoking, because cigarette smoking does impede your body's natural ability to repair itself. So, next article is on marijuanamoment.net, and the Denver police are actually processed a record low amount of illicit marijuanas at a state-level cannabis market evolves, the state report says. Colorado approaches its 10-year anniversary since legal adult use marijuana sales began, and the city of Denver has released a report indicating that its local regulatory framework has effectively reduced the size of illicit market, with law enforcement processing a record low amount of illegal cannabis in 2022. And this is cool because, finally, police in Denver and in Colorado can focus their freaking all of their money and task force to other crime, and more important crime, rapes, felonies, violent people, mentally crazy people, the homeless people down there. It's absolutely insane. There's a lot more things to be taken care of in Denver than marijuana. So this, according to the report, Police City processed 2,435 pounds of illegal marijuana in 2022, and that was down 74% since retailers first opened, which is huge. It's massive. All right, next article. This is on fox8.com. Deputies find marijuana coated in mustard during a traffic stop. And what an interesting way to try to smuggle your cannabis. I had to pull this article up. They conducted the Portage County Sheriff Department conducted a traffic stop on June 21st, Interstate 76, eastbound in Brenfield Township, and a man from Detroit, Michigan was driving a rental car when he was pulled over. The deputies smelled marijuana in the vehicle. After they conducted a search, they found about a half pound of marijuana found wrapped in a saran wrap and coated in mustard in an attempt to mask the odor. It was nearly $10,000 also found in the glove box. This is not the article that I thought it was. I was getting tripped up in my mind on that. Guys, I heard a long time ago that dogs' sense of smell is like 100 times better than man's. Maybe it's more than that. I may be wildly inaccurate. But the way that a police officer explained it to me once is that drug dogs can smell human beings. When you walk into a house and there's like a stew cooking on the stove, you smell the whole stew. You just walk in, you're like, wow, that smells great. But a dog would be able to identify each individual ingredients in the stew. And that's how much different or more precise their smelling capacity is than ours. So I thought that was an interesting little fact there. This is a really interesting work-related article for people who use cannabis, and it's definitely setting like a precedence across the nation, which is exciting to see. I love seeing articles that do this, kind of push the envelope and also make it more comfortable for cannabis users across the United States. So a wastewater treatment worker who was fired by the city of Amsterdam, New York, 3 years ago after testing positive for marijuana was awarded $191,762 by a jury that found that the city officials had discriminated against him when they ignored that he had been prescribed the drug for chronic pain. So this is awesome because they found that he had violated his human rights law that deems someone without a medical marijuana prescription having a disability and makes them part of a protected class. The Compassionate Care Act allowing medical prescriptions of marijuana was signed into law in July 2014 and took effect in January 2016. Marijuana was legalized for recreational use in 2021. Thomas v. Affolls was fired by Mayor Michael Cinquanti after he tested positive for marijuana February 2020 during a random drug screening. Affolls was fired under the provision of last chance agreement that he had been provided to him by the city when he also tested positive for marijuana in 2017. The agreement had noted that any additional violations in the city's policy could result in an immediate termination. But a year before his second positive test, Affolls had been prescribed marijuana for the treatment of back pain. That prescription was in effect at the time he tested positive 3 years ago. According to court records, Affolls notified the city officials that he was a certified patient in the state medical marijuana program and that he had a valid Department of Health certification for the medical marijuana prescription. Following the jury's verdict in the state Supreme Court last week, Affolls, who had worked for the city of Amsterdam since 2012, will be eligible to apply to the judge to order that he be reinstated his $49,000 a year job to the wastewater treatment plant, and the city may be required to pay his legal fees. They couldn't fire him fast enough, his attorney said. So this is cool because this is really going to set a nationwide precedence. You can't fire somebody who has a medical marijuana card for testing positive for marijuana. It should be like this across the board for all careers, in my opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that disagree with me on that, but that's your own business, and I think that this is awesome. So next one is exciting. Forbes.com just came out today with Rep. Matt Gaetz proposed to ban marijuana testing in the U.S. military, which is awesome. Matt Gaetz, Republican, has introduced an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act to ban marijuana testing for members of the military both during the process of enlistment and when accepting a commission. The amendment proposed last week aims to address the plummeting recruitment in the U.S. Army, exacerbated by a growing number of recruits testing positive for marijuana use. In 2022, military data obtained and reported by the New York Times revealed that 4,710 recruits failed their entry drug test, representing a nearly 33% surge compared to the figures of 2020. Wow, that's crazy. And this is really fun if they do, in fact, legalize this for veterans or also, current military members. This is awesome. I hope that I will be able to apply for an upgrade in my discharge because I was separated for testing positive for cannabis from the Marine Corps. And, they didn't even catch me with the cannabis. It was just in my urine, which is the most wild thing to me. I was not at a time of war, so, it was all in 29 Palms, California, extremely hot, crack of the desert, asshole area. And I really, maybe it's nice to visit in Joshua Tree in the Yucca Valley area, but to train out there with a flak jacket and Kevlar, it is unreal. So, the heat, man, in that desert drives people mad. It boils your, how could you not smoke weed? You got to. Next one is on Cleveland.com. Recreational marijuana backers submit signatures to qualify for the November 7th ballot. And this is awesome because in Ohio, backers of a proposed law that would legalize recreational marijuana for people ages 21 and older submitted 222,198 signatures to the state on Wednesday, putting it one step closer to getting on the November ballot. The Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol needed 124,000 ballot signatures from registered voters to get on the ballot in November, and it must have signatures from at least 44 of Ohio's 88 counties. Shout out to Yams DeLong on Instagram. If you guys don't follow my girl Yammy, you got to go see her. She's freaking hilarious, and she lives in Ohio, so I hope that rec goes legal for you, baby girl. All right, next one is also in Ohio, Cleveland19.com. 3 pounds of marijuana, THC, edibles, hashish, and gun seized in the Portage County traffic stop. This is the one that I was thinking about earlier. I got a little confused, confuzzled, if you will. I don't mean to get all scientific. All right, so in Brimfield Township, Ohio, a traffic stop led to deputies to seize marijuana, THC, edibles, hashish, and a gun in Brimfield Township. The PACE unit made the stop for a misdemeanor traffic violation as the car was exiting I-76 eastbound into the township. The driver and the passenger were identified by the PCSO as Akron residents. Deputies saw marijuana in plain view and also detected an odor of marijuana coming from inside the car while speaking to the driver and the passenger. They said that it was probable cause to search the car, and they were able to seize the following: 3 pounds of raw marijuana, half a pound of THC edibles, 7 grams of hashish, a loaded .380 Ruger 3 LCP handgun, a digital scale, unused plastic bags, other items indicated of drug trafficking, and more than $4,000 in cash. Goddamn, guys. You're out there thug rugging, and I'm glad you got caught, because we don't need freaking drug dealers on the street running around with freaking guns. It's not a good mix. It makes everybody who does grow weed legally look really bad. Next one, marijuanamoment.net. Biden must support fully descheduling. Biden must support fully descheduling marijuana to finally end an unjust criminalization, former prisoner says. And this is totally true. Let's see what we get in here. This guy says, in 2004, I was sentenced to 55 years in federal prison for marijuana-related offenses. I was released on May 31, 2016 after a federal court granted me a reduction in sentence, and in 2020 I was pardoned by President Donald Trump. And let's see if I can find this guy's name again here. He is concerned that the Biden administration may recommend that marijuana be moved to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substance Act. If this is true, I can say that it falls woefully short of the meaningful reform our nation needs and the reforms promised by President Biden. As long as marijuana remains anywhere in the Controlled Substance Act, it will remain federally criminalized in most instances. To rectify the harms inflicted by the decades of misguided policies, we need to ensure that no one goes to prison for marijuana, to prioritize the release and restoration of those who have already suffered the consequences of an unjust system. And this is completely true. This plant, you cannot overdose on it. It will put you to sleep long before that happens. It's a plant that can change the entire existence of the planet. If you've never read the book or listened to Jack Herrera's story in The Emperor Wears No Clothes, it's the story about hemp and how hemp can save the world. It is awesome and super important. I think that the more that you look into how cannabis could save the world on a broader spectrum, the more you really start to question what's going on at the federal level of our government, especially too as we see not only different continents now legalizing cannabis. And Asia just had its first country of Thailand legalizing, and it's kind of hard, there's a lot of debate whether or not it's going to be recriminalized or what's going to happen with the future of it there. But everybody kind of knows that once the cat's out of the bag, it's hard to put it back in. So I completely agree with this article. I'm definitely calling on President Biden or the next president that we have. Please legalize it immediately. And cannabis must be legalized, period. Legalized in all forms, period. Charlie Hempseed for president. I know we said that last time. I'll keep saying it every time, probably. And next article. This is an article coming out of 710keel.com. And can you own a gun in Louisiana if you use medical marijuana? Well, you might not be aware, but the use of medical marijuana has actually been legal in Louisiana since 1978, when Governor Edwin Edwards signed into law allowing only glaucoma and cancer chemotherapy patients to use the medical marijuana. The original law from 1978 has been amended several times, and in June 2015, Governor Bobby Jindal signed SB 143 and HB 149, establishing a legal framework for medical marijuana distribution and reforming Louisiana's marijuana possession laws. But medical cannabis products were only made available to patients in the third quarter of 2019. Initially, only tinctures were legal, but as of mid-2022, Louisiana law allows the production of oils, tablets, liquids, topical treatments, and inhalers. Smoking cannabis is not permitted for medical use. Hey, shout out to my boy Blaze Domino from the Marine Corps. He's down there in Louisiana, was asking me the other day about options down there, and it doesn't look like you guys have any smokable, which sucks, but it does have chronic pain on there, traumatic brain injury, any condition requiring hospice or palliative care. And let's see, this is what we're really trying to get into of this article. The meat and potatoes, though, is recently the question was posed whether or not someone in Louisiana could legally purchase a firearm if they have a medical marijuana card. According to the firearms transaction record from the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives regarding specific state laws, it is illegal to use or possess marijuana according to federal law. It says, are you a fugitive of justice? Are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance. Warning: the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under the federal law regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medicinal or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. Which that looks like a new thing to me. As far as I understand, I've done these news articles for a while, and I've never seen this last part on this question there. So definitely all these other ones. Have you ever been to a mental institution? Have you been dishonorably discharged? And just trying to see here. They're breaking down this: are you a lawful user, or are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana, any other depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? Marijuana user could, in theory, answer no to this question, but that respondent would be in violation of federal law by doing so, and it is a crime punishable as a felony under federal law, and may also violate state and or local law. Which is super, super convoluted, considering that over half of the country has like some form of recreational and well over 75% has medical. It's just really interesting that the state or the federal government is still holding on to that position that you can't do this. And it's very, very interesting. Again, I think most of these people say that they're concerned about whether or not people can function and have a firearm safely. Can you possess one at home safely and be a medical marijuana patient? I think that's a huge question for the federal government or even law enforcement. But the thing is of course that is allowable because you're allowed to have alcohol at home and have firearms. Nobody's talking about that. You're allowed to brew your own beer at home with firearms in your house. Nobody talks about that. There's a lot of things that you can do at your own house legally and own firearms. To think that you couldn't be a medical marijuana patient solely because and own firearms solely because you are a medical marijuana patient or that you consume cannabis is ridiculous in my mind. So again, Biden or the next president, please make a change there, because nationwide there are so many people in violation of that law that it's really not fair. Charlie Hempseed for president. All right, here we go. The Denver Gazette: marijuana-related crime sales decreased last year in Denver. I think this is a duplicate article that I forgot to cancel out. I talked about that already. This one is local here to South Dakota on the Sioux City Journal in Vermilion, South Dakota. A new medical marijuana dispensary in Vermilion is set to celebrate its opening later this month, and its conjunction with the famous American Canadian Dakota Herb is holding a grand opening for its new joint at 112 East Main Street in downtown Vermilion at noon July 24th, and Jim Belushi is set to appear on behalf of his Belushi's Farm cannabis brand, the Blues Brothers. Belushi has been in a marijuana game since 2015, and his brothers John famously appeared in the Blues Brothers Saturday Night Live sketches and the 1980 film with Dan Aykroyd. So I love the Blues Brothers movie. It was hilarious. It was one of my dad's favorite movies, so that's why I liked it a lot. Joe Stavig, the CFO of Dakota Herb and a medical marijuana provider with 4 locations in South Dakota, said in a release that the work the business does mirrors the high-quality standards set by the Blues Brothers. I've never had any of this flower. The Blues Brothers flower in any other state. I don't know how it's going to be or not. But sure, excited. Why not? And if it's garbage, we'll let you know. If it's great, we'll let you know. I hope it's awesome. So next one, Kelloland.com. Marijuana dispensaries owners talk business growth. And this is, it's been nearly a year since the first licensed cannabis dispensary opened in South Dakota, and the industry has seen big shifts in the ensuing 12 months. While the program was slow off the blocks, the first state licensed dispensary opened more than 7 months after the first state medical cards were issued. There are now dispensary, cultivation, and manufacturing facilities open in many parts of the state. Ben Nusselhuff, CEO of True North Dispensary in North Sioux City, says his business has been open since December 15, 2022, and they've been doing business for around 6.5 months. It's been educational. Nesselhuff chuckled when he was asked about the 6 months that had gone. It's definitely been exciting to be part of a new industry. True North was not the first dispensary to open in the state, though it was among the first crop to open its doors. There's a number of cultivators that are online that are selling really good product, and I would put some of the product that they are producing up against any in the country. And I would agree, some of these cultivators in South Dakota are doing such a fantastic job that we are among the nation's best. I've been all across the nation. I have smoked garbage weed all across the nation, and I've smoked select fire weed in certain spots in the nation. And there are, like, shout out to my boy Tom, Eugene is Loud on Instagram, and Dakota Natural Growers. They're putting in God's work out there. My boy Mango out there at the Turp Ranch, Nevada with Dakota Green. Rare Earth is just crushing it. I've had a couple strains from Pure Bliss that I'm super enjoying. Quite a few of these companies are really starting to come around. So exciting times here in the state of South Dakota. That's all I have queued up for you guys today. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. Oh, and just 2 days ago was the 4th of July. I want to take a quick moment to say thank you guys so much. Thank you for all the veterans out there who served the country. Thank you guys for all the people who lost their lives, fighting for our freedoms, giving me the ability to have just the 2 plants. I made a post on July 4th that was emotional to me. I didn't make a video about it. I just made a post about it. It frustrates me that here in the state of South Dakota, I'm only legally allowed to have the 2 plants. I am the most outwardly expressed home grower in the state, and I'm sure that the police have watched me, and I have to keep it to these 2 plants because I've got to follow my T's and dot my I's. And it's frustrating to me that I can only have the 2 plants. But at the same time, I am extremely happy and proud of the state of South Dakota that they allow me to have the 2 plants. So I do have to say thank you for at least coming around and allowing us to have 2. Let freedom grow, baby. How can a plant be a crime? It's unbelievable. A lot of people out here are in rural parts of South Dakota with no dispensaries, and the prices are still so high that I would really like to see our state legislatures increase the plant count for medical patients, especially people like myself. I deal with a lot of pain. My collarbone is never ever going to be the same, and my bipolar issue is not approved through the state, but chronic pain is. And I use cannabis to manage my daily issues, and I know that there are so many other people in the same boat that we can max out our purchase limit. And if at maxing out the purchase limit, you're talking about spending thousands of dollars in each month on this medicine that we need. And really, we got to get to a point federally and where we allow this on a medical note, at least. Of course, everybody, I think, or the vast majority of the country is on board with just an outright legalization at this point. And let's just recap on it. If we're going to do an outright legalization, let's legalize it, period. We don't need limits on possession. We don't need limits on growing. We don't need limits on any of that. Literally nothing. It's legalized. Let us do our thing. Let us make our products, and let us rock in life. So thank you guys so much. Happy July 4th, and I'll see you next time, all right?